Good morning, dear friends in the Dharma. Am I audible? Yes. Hooray. How lovely of you to come visit in my tent on this rather warm Sunday morning. The sun has been fully on the tent now for about an hour and a half, and the shadow of the leaves is slowly descending, so it'll cool off in here. Today is the 26th of July, 2020, in the year of COVID-19. I'm Robert Beatty, and I'm coming to you through the auspices of the Portland Insight Meditation Community from our Western broadcast office in a tent in the Eastern Beaverton. And Sunday morning, we have 2 hours to be together. And we'll follow this poem, what I've been doing for quite some time, starting with a poem and then chanting, singing the Refuges, and then a sit, and then Jim Dalton will do some mindful movement, and then a conversation, short-ish, I think, Dharma talk from me, and then an opportunity for community sharing. A nice breeze. Maybe I'll share this with you. 25 years ago or so, one of my students' father died. And he asked me if I would perform 2 ceremonies, one at the mortuary and one at graveside. And the graveside was up the gorge, up the Columbia River Gorge, in a place called Mosier, which is wheat fields. And it was one of those really hot summer days here in Portland, over 100 degrees. And I was wearing a black suit, and I rode up to the mortuary, to the graveyard, old graveyard, in Mosier, in the hearse with my student and the funeral director and the body. And the grave was dug, and we got there early enough that we moved the casket to the device that would lower it into the grave. And then we went and stood at the back of the hearse as people arrived, and they dawdled in. It took quite some time. And it was really hot. I was dripping sweat inside my suit. And I whispered to the funeral director, "Hot." And he said, surprisingly, "You've worked an 8-hour shift down in the engine room. In the engine room, you were shoveling coal into the boilers, and it was really hot all day, your whole shift. And now you've come up on deck. Can you feel that slight breeze that's coming from the left?" And there was a slight breeze, ever so slight cooling breeze. And then he said, focus on that. Some great wisdom from that fellow. From this wonderful little book, The First Free Women, Poems of the Early Buddhist Nuns. Genta or Henta, Conqueror. I was forever getting lost until one day the Buddha told me, to walk this path you will need 7 friends. Mindfulness, curiosity, courage, joy, calm, stillness, and perspective. These are, of course, the enlightenment factors. To walk this path, you'll need 7 friends: mindfulness, curiosity, courage, joy, calm, stillness, and perspective. For many years, these friends and I have traveled together, sometimes wandering in circles, sometimes taking the long way around. There were days when I thought I couldn't go on. There were days when I thought I was finally beaten. It's scary to give all of oneself to just one thing. What if you don't make it? Oh, my heart, you don't have to go it alone. Train yourself to train just a little more gently. I was forever getting lost until one day the Buddha told me, to walk this path, you will need 7 friends: mindfulness, curiosity, courage, joy, calm, stillness, and perspective or equanimity. For many years, these friends and I have traveled together, sometimes wandering in circles, sometimes taking the long way around. There were days when I thought I couldn't go on. There were days when I thought I was finally beaten. It was scary to give all of myself to just one thing. What if you don't make it? Oh, my heart, you don't have to go it alone. Train yourself to train just a little more gently. A little more gently. How about that as an idea, as a practice? And to support us on the path, it's been almost 50 years now since the Buddha has stood front and center for me. It's a long time. So what does taking refuge in the Buddha mean? It's changed over the years for me. For a long time, there was a kind of a religious thing, taking refuge in this fellow, brilliant fellow. It's come more and more to mean taking refuge in being awake, in that which actually is awake, in the fruits of the practice. I take refuge in the Dharma, in the teachings, in the way, in the path, and that which actually occurs in this moment. There's lots of little high-pitched bird song this morning. I don't know whether it gets through the sound filters. Hearing, I take refuge in the fact of hearing. And then Sangha, I take refuge in the Sangha, in the community of mindful harmony. I take refuge in the PIMC Sangha and the community here, and this morning, Sunday morning. And then there's the great Sangha, the Sangha of all life, of which each of us are an integral part. There's never been another one of you before, and there never will be again. Imagine that, in the incredible vastness of this universe, where no doubt civilizations have been coming and going for millions of years. There's never been a one of you. Makes you rather precious, doesn't it? And so we take refuge in the great song of life. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. "2,600 years ago or so, Siddhartha, who was to become the Buddha, made a seat for himself under the Ficus religiosa, the beautiful tree that has very horizontal branches and creates a little microclimate underneath it. Sat down, made a vow, I'm going to wake up tonight. Either I'll wake up or I'll die. That's kind of a lot of commitment. And something big happened for him that night, which results in us being here today. A long time to be following someone else's experience. He spent his whole adult life into his early 80s, which was very old for that time, traveling around the country, teaching people what he had found, with the intention of sharing with them, this is what you can do to have the same experience I had. This experience is available to ordinary people. All it takes is devotion and practice, and a willingness to keep going through storms of desire and anger and fear and resentment and restlessness and agitation and worry and remorse and doubt and despair, sleepy dullness, hopelessness. The task is to keep going, to intoxicate ourselves with distractions less and less, and to set ourselves free. So let us do that right here. right now. And as always, we sit down right in the middle of where we are. Sometimes that means we sit down in the middle of ease and pleasure and contentment and love and compassion. Other times it's in the middle of sickness or physical pain or storms of emotions. It takes a brave person to do this. It takes a person who's bumped their nose against reality lots of times and discovered how the usual consolation prizes of life are not cutting it. To quote a silly modern teaching, amidst the pleasures and satisfactions of daily life, where's the beef? So let's stop and sit. Being aware of the life of the body. Noticing the fire element. Are there parts of the body that are warm and other parts that are cool? Is there a cool breeze from the left? Each breath has a lifetime, a beginning and ending. Why not embrace this breath, this sensation of breathing, as sensations in the chest and abdomen, or perhaps at the nostrils? Let that be your landing place or home base. Of course, the mind has a mind of its own and may well wander. You may fall into trance states that last for minutes or even hours, even days sometimes. But we practice with these 7 enlightenment factors, primarily with mindfulness. Because the truth is, we are not these wandering minds, we are not these thoughts, we are not these stories, we are not the personality we identify with, we are not nationalism, we are not race, we are not. What we are fundamentally is this that knows. For the purposes of awakening, all the distinctions are irrelevant. Hearing, practicing always more gently, with less I, less effort, less demand. It is miraculous that in the midst of a wandering mind, awareness springs into being, mindfulness, remembering to remember. No one knows how that happens, but it does happen. And the teachings of the Buddha say that we can actually practice in such a way that those moments of awakening happen more frequently. They become more part of the equation. The body is an extraordinary display of sensations from the tip of the toes to the crown of the head. Sometimes when the mind is stable, when the centrifugal forces of the hindrances are diminished, it's possible to open awareness to the entire body, to feel the entire body in one glance, sort of. We can approximate that and approach that through body sweeping, where we start with the feet and then go to the ankles and calves and shins, to the knees and the thighs. We have the interior of the thighs and the exterior, and the top and the back or bottom. And we have the life of the buttocks pressing against the chair or the floor, the genitals, perineum, anus, all the organs nestled in the pelvis, the sacrum, the spine and back, the pubic bone and the abdomen, the solar plexus, the chest, breathing, the sides, the fingers and thumbs and hands and wrists, forearms and elbows and upper arms, the shoulders, the neck and the jaw, the cheeks and the eyes, the nose, the crown, the ears, the scalp. So there's this body which is a mass of life. Where does it exist? It exists inside awareness, with awareness. And it breathes. Mindfulness of the entire breath body, the breathing body. Whenever we get lost, whenever we go astray, with the greatest of kindness, with gentle persistence. We come home to our chosen object, the breath, the body sitting, and we recognize that another moment of awakening is happening to know that that's what's needed. resting in the truth, in the direct experience, in the Dharma, in this moment. In shorthand, this moment is like this. In the practice of insight, Satipatthana Vipassana, we practice let go, let go, let go. Identify with nothing. Observe everything arising and passing away as the impersonal phenomena they are. It can be such a relief to not have to be changing anything, to not have to be trying to make something different. On the other pole, perhaps, another tuning, there is this one-of-a-kind, ever separate being living through his, her, their lifetime. And one thing we know for sure is everyone needs to be loved and loving. There are some who are so wounded they don't know this, but that doesn't mean it's not true. So why not think a loving thought, a thought of connection or love? You could remember sometime. There was a time long ago when my son was less than a year old. Someone had offered us the use of their little house up on the ocean south of Vancouver, or Seattle. We intended to leave Portland in the morning and didn't get out till rush hour at 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and it was hot. And there was tension in the car. Luke was in the back seat, fussing, crying. And we stopped, completely stopped in traffic. And I went to the back seat and took him out of his car seat and held him in my arms, and he fell asleep in my arms in the front seat. During the first part of this, I looked around to the cars around me and felt competition and anger at all these other people, and no one made eye contact. And then I fell into a sort of reverie holding this baby in my arms. And I thought a few loving kindness thoughts. And then I think I drifted off. And then when I came back to everyday consciousness, it wasn't every day. The people in the cars around me had been replaced by heavenly beings. The woman in the car with me was my beloved. In my arms, of course, was the ultimate gift. And so when I think of that, a little smile comes to my face. You have some experiences like that in your life. Perhaps with a baby, perhaps with a pet, perhaps with a lover, perhaps with a sunrise. Some cherished, beautiful experience of loving. Why not remember that? Encourage your brain to fire the synapses that are associated with that loving moment. And if that seems too grand, just think of some time when you felt content or at ease. Maybe it was half an hour ago or 5 minutes ago. And we could, on the in-breath, wish ourselves well. I know I want to be loved and loving. May it be so. May I be deeply happy. On the out-breath, to all beings, may all beings be deeply happy. And not just the happy of a mood or of getting something you want, but of freedom. Of the capacity to accept life really on its own terms. May I be free from fear and danger on the in-breath. May all beings be free from fear and danger on the out-breath. And remembering death, remembering what a short time we have here together, inhabiting these bodies. In a certain way, how can we be anything but loving? All of our adversaries will die. All of our allies and friends will die. We will die. Remembering this, how can we be anything but loving? And please now, I invite you to really settle into your body, to feel its aliveness, to practice a moment of gratefulness for its functioning, and then to bring awareness into the face and the eyes, the temperature in the face and the eyes, the sensations, any tightness in the forehead, softening. And then forming the intention to let the eyes open. And then making the effort, operationalizing to have the eyes open. Open and seeing. Aware of how seeing consciousness springs into life. And if you happen to be looking at a screen like mine in, what's the view? It's called, I don't know, gallery view. There it is. I have a gallery of very beautiful human beings. Each of you living in a little postage stamp. surrounded by your accoutrements of life, remembering our temporary nature, how can we be anything but loving? Reminds me of a short Rumi poem of a sort. Inside the great mystery that is, we never really own anything. So what is this strange competition we feel then? Before we go one at a time through the same gate. Thank you for sitting with me this morning. I feel much saner than when I sat down here 45 minutes ago. Quieter, calmer. The enlightenment factors are enhanced. Mindfulness, curiosity, persistence, energy, joy, concentration, tranquility and equanimity, perspective, sanity. In a moment, I'm going to invite Jim to lead some mindful movement. But before then, if I can find it, I want to do this announcement. Of course, it's not there. Now, there it is. There's part of it. Aha. Start again. There it is. Saturday, August 1st from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Going Deeper, a retreat day of practice with Robert and Candle. A day with some sitting and walking and Dharma talk and an emphasis on practice, however. You can find this on the portlandinsight.org website. And I hope you'll come join us next Saturday. It'll be the first time I teach with Candle, and I'm looking forward to it a lot. And then there's one more.
It's Candle.
Candle, are you there? Hey!
I'm here.
Oh, can you yes, speak up.
I think I was going to show my face, but I had to move to a different place because Bill is outside running a sander. So all I wanted to say was hello, and my dog is barking. And I'm really looking forward to seeing folks that I know and folks that I don't know, and having a fabulous time with you.
Amen. It's been that way every time we meet.
Yes, it has, for which I'm happy.
Great.
And I'll see you at your virtual book signing.
The book signing, too. That's
which
true.
Is probably your next announcement.
I had forgotten about it completely. Thank you. How funny.
Yes.
I forgot.
Okay, I'll sign off.
Thank you. On Tuesday
Hello to
night.
everyone.
On Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, Laura Musikansky, who worked on the book endlessly with me, and I are hosting a Zoom gathering, which is kind of a book. We would have hors d'oeuvres and so on if we could be together, but it's a book launching party, and I have no idea what we'll do, but we'll gather together there and celebrate Mindfulness for a Happy Life being out. And it's exciting. And I guess I should be the responsible person that I try to be and mention this. Hang on. All right. If you want to practice generosity, a great practice, one of the best. If you want to practice generosity, one way to do it is to support your Dharma Center. You can find this on the website on the front page. And there's a way to, and generosity, what is it? It's opening one's frightened self and practicing giving, because in that giving we really become more of what's true, which we're all connected. So you can give to the Stewardship Circle a monthly donation, which is a fantastic way to support the center. Or for these, if you want to specifically articulate your appreciation of this gathering, you can do it here, or Jim's Monday night, or Tuesdays, etc. This is a small group, peer-led, Tuesday mornings. Gary Sanders and Gregory and Doug and Doyle and Robert, and very soon there's going to be Kendall and also Kate. Kate's going to be doing a Friday night gathering. So we're going to be online every evening almost. Yeah, I guess it will be every evening. So it's a way to participate in keeping the place going and being ready for when we do open the doors. So that said, I want to invite Jim to take the helm, and I'm going to get a glass of water.
Okay, thank you. And my Monday night has been on hiatus while we do the book club on Monday nights. I wanted to participate in that. So now, let's see. How do I get Robert's? There we go. Now I can see where we're going. I need to have a picture of me, otherwise I don't know if I'm in the right stamp, in the right box. All right. So if you'd like to join me with some movement, beginning with standing and a short body scan. We got a lot of opportunities to tune into the body during this first hour that we spent together. I was really happy that Robert went back to the poem about the 7 allies that we have on the path. I think it was Genta, the Conqueror, or something like that. But remember that from March. You read that poem when we first started, the first week or so. So, where are those 7 allies right now? Well, mindfulness is one of the allies, 7 factors of enlightenment, and we can be mindful of our connection with the floor. We can bring attention, this soft, gentle attention to what's happening in our feet if we move the center of gravity gently back and forth. The poem ends with, be gentle. We're on this path. It's not a sprint. Be gentle with the awareness of the intelligence of the body as the center of gravity moves. All these tendons and muscles organize themselves to keep us upright, but one leg is working a little harder than the other, and then we switch. And we go into our toes and into our heels. And the whole body, as soon as we have an intention to move, the whole body cooperates to create a harmony. If we sink and let the arms rise, there's a harmony between the intention of lifting and then relaxing down, and that corresponds to all sorts of sensations in the shoulders, the elbows, the wrists, the fingertips. All these muscles and connecting tissues are working harmoniously to lift and sink. And there's a tranquility that goes through the whole nervous system. We've been sitting in one position with our attention narrowly focused on the breath, and then we begin to move here. It's a broader, open-hearted, open-minded attention. What's happening in the knees, in the spine, in the shoulders, in the wrists. And then we lift and open and notice how things change in the rib cage. Curious about what's opening, what's pleasantly surprised by the opening, what's stagnant and stuck and resisting. Sometimes there's resistance as we go through a gesture. There's a whole journey of discoveries to be made. How does the body feel sinking? How does it feel rising and opening? There's an opening to the world, opening to more oxygen, more energy, and then releasing, knowing how to let go. Curiosity, what's a better way of letting go? Maybe there's still some tension, this small little hideaway in the spine or the shoulders or the wrists. So, out of curiosity, we lift overhead. Paint a rainbow and notice how one side of our rib cage is opening and the other is closing at the same time. Again, that harmony of sensations throughout the body. It's not a struggle to paint a rainbow. It's a gentle intention, and when it takes place, it soothes the nervous system. As a beginning, a middle, and an ending, we're not attached to any part of it. We let it go, and let it go. And then when that gesture is finished, we let it go completely and start a new one. How does it start? We cross our wrists. As we cross the wrist, feel what happens with the shoulder blades. There's sensations across the upper spine and back muscles and the shoulder blades. And then we lift and stretch overhead. And when we get up here, then the shoulder blades are tight together. They're holding the arms up. They're using the spine as leverage. But it's not a stressful thing. It's using the cooperation and the intelligence of the body to create two big circles with soothing sensations, joy, ability to move, concentrating on the whole gesture from the bottom through the journey, up, through the journey, down, maintaining connection with sensations in the hands, in the shoulders, in the spine, turning, opening the arms, feeling
those of
turn
you
to one side, turn to
on
the other, feeling
Facebook
that
and
expanse.
YouTube, if you'd like to participate more fully, I invite you to go to portlandinsight.org, and there you could connect up with the Zoom channel, and you'd be able to see Jim doing the Qigong and Tai Chi right now. So please be invited to do that. It'll take a moment to do because you go there and then you use the link to get the link. Take you about 3 or 4 minutes, and then you'd be right on board with the Zoom channel. So I hope you can do that if you want, and take care. In the meantime, I'll let you hear the
It's like
audio.
the analogy of tuning a string on a stringed instrument. It's just the right amount of energy to create joy in the whole nervous system. And when we pause, lower, there's a tranquility because none of the movements have been clung to. There's no clinging in any of the movements. It was a surrender from moment to moment, What's next? What's next? What's next? Sinking, full back, come overhead, and then investigate. What's the range of motion that feels best right now? It may not be 100% of your reach. It may be 60, 70%. Don't do anything that causes discomfort. It's a matter of opening the chest, then opening the rib cage in the back as we bring our hands down the center line. That opens those shoulder blades, and feel the sensation in the shoulder blades moving back and forth, while the conscious intention is a circle for the hands. So we create this intention, the image of the hands, but the sensation in the back is a gentle squeezing and opening. Lifting across, lifting one heel off the floor, come back to the center. There's tranquility, there's balance, total symmetry. Left and right is balanced, and reaching out, lifting the heel off the floor makes the opposite foot work. The leg has to support all that weight on one side. Then pausing, feeling the balance, tranquil. Out of that tranquility arises tension. It's activated, and then no clinging. When it's time, we let go. New intention, lifting. No clinging to this position, just releasing and letting go. Establishing a rhythm in our movement practice. It sort of spills over into the rest of our lives. When we set intentions the rest of the day and carry them out, can we know when the ending comes and just allow the return? Coming back to the center, sinking into the knees, going back to the feet, sensation of connecting to the earth through the bottoms of the feet, into the calf muscles, into the knees, into the hips, lower spine, upper spine, shoulders, down the front of the body, sternum, rib cage moving out to the side with each in-breath. The arms hanging from the shoulders. The neck relaxed, chin level. We'll sink one more time. Rise up and come down the center.
6,
Noticing we've got another journey. It's coming to its end. Down here, we begin again. Stay with it all the way through and follow up with the release and letting go. New energy in. Watching the energy fade. Resting. One more time. This time as we come resting, just open the heart in gratitude. Bring our hands together for another opportunity to practice, feeling the flow of intelligent, rhythmic breathing as a group. Thank you very much. We'll see you on Tuesday evening and Saturday at the retreat, and hope you have a good week. Take care.
Thank you, dear Jim.
Yes, sir. Signing off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, hello, everybody. Oh, my little dog showed up at the door right now. Well, I'm feeling very quiet right now. Let's just sit for 5 minutes. Sit and participate in this mysterious aliveness and awareness of this aliveness, including all the thoughts, conflicts, ease, tranquility. This moment is like this. I have been confused and struggling about what to say today because I know what's up for me, and usually I go there. And blessedly, in your presence and in the practice in the last hour, it has become a little clearer, and so I can at least make a try. People are paying attention to Portland, Oregon all over the world. Something really important is happening here. And it's really messy. And as I begin to speak of it, I feel rather teary. On Thursday evening, relatively early, 8 o'clock or so, I went down to the Justice Center, to the park in front there. And I was saddened to discover that beautiful elk that stood right there at that intersection that you drive around is gone. And there were a lot of people. It wasn't jammed. I could maintain somewhat of, a few feet distance between myself and others. Though I didn't maintain distance between myself and Tara, my daughter, who I hadn't seen since she went to New York, and that was a lovely connection, and 2 or 3 of her friends were there. So I spent the evening until around 11:30 when I got tired. And also, I didn't want to be there for the encounter between the people who are anxious to confront the federal officers and the federal officers themselves. And they did do their dance that night. Everyone played their roles. The federal guys came out in their armored suits and shot tear gas and chased people back, and then the gas cleared, and then they came back. Apparently went on till 3. I got a text from Tara this morning at 3, home safe. So she had been there, and I don't know what happened last night, but probably more of the same. So there's something that's emerging for me that I want to share with you because it may be helpful to others. Somehow or another, with my reading and listening and being there at the protest, I'm somehow being able to allow into my being the unbelievable atrocity that has been the relationship of dominant white America to African Americans, the black people. 400 years. And it's one thing to say, of course, there's structural racism, but somehow or another it's seeping into my bones that there really is structural racism and there really is a vast oppression which is sort of unbearable to think of. And I don't live in much contact with that, of course. I live in my white world. Very few encounters with black people even. And no encounters with the police. When I meet the police, and I haven't in several years, and I don't know it's because I've been driving better, but I meet them as a white privileged man with 70 years old with a pretty good driving record and Buddha on my license plate. And what I meet is I've always been friendly, and there's been 4 or 5 times, and I'm always friendly. And one officer said, "Do you know why I stopped you?" And I said, "Well, I must have done something wrong. Was I going too fast? Because I wouldn't be meeting you if I didn't." And then we had playful banter, and he let me go. That's not the experience of black men in our culture, and black women, I'm sure, to some degree. I've heard one guy speak. He said he'd been stopped more than 30 times in a year. 30 times. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, right? Then there's the aggressive policing, so that police departments can get their money from the feds. They have to make so many stops and so many drug busts, and it's structural. So I was struggling with my role when I was at the demonstration. I'm not only cautious of anger, I'm a little phobic of anger. When Jennifer gets angry, she can get angry and be angry for 30 seconds, and then it goes away. My little Bobby goes into, I'm not safe. Maybe I made a mistake. I shouldn't be here. Maybe I married the wrong person. And he's improved, but he can withdraw and be cold and distant for a day over something rather trivial. So I'm not a very good, I have a lot of work to do around anger. So there's a lot of anger in those protests. And I didn't feel comfortable engaging in angry chanting. And what I realized just this morning was I don't have to. That may not be my role. What I did feel comfortable in was feeling compassion for everybody there, for the people leading the chants, for the people participating, for the people that they're giving away food, ribs of all things. You can get clothing and food. You can basically live right there in that park, and the homeless people come and get fed too. But my job isn't to be angry. My job is to be conscious and compassionate. And that includes those frightened, I would say misguided federal troops inside the federal building. They too are just acting on their conditioned minds, and it's tragic. And they encounter angry and I would say hate-filled people outside, some who are there for that purpose, and they're having their ritualized battle. And it's not true with everyone. There was a line of women, a line of mothers, who were it was very touching to me to see them there, trying to protect and to soften the conflict. But whatever the case, it was a relief to me to realize I don't have to be angry about this. The fact that some people are and probably need to be, and maybe the movement really badly needs that, I can simply be loving and compassionate about it all. And then there was the question that Jennifer's been reading me things from different articles, and I picked up a few things myself. We have anger. Anger is built into us because when it's a matter of life and death, as a species, as individuals of a species, we have needed to mobilize our aggressive energy and our flight energy fast. And one of the ways to do that is through affect and emotion, and one of the emotions that really mobilizes us is anger. So I could say, and I've had thoughts like this, well, I don't think that anger is the way for a movement to succeed. But if it's a matter of life and death, and there are the people who have been oppressed and had literally a knee on their neck, maybe anger is the absolutely essential and natural energy to emerge. And who am I to say whether it should be or shouldn't be? It's scary to me. I've seen anger do some very bad things in my life. But I don't know. I have no idea about social movements or that at all. My training and that which I bask in has to do with what do I do with my anger? What do I do with my fear? What do I do with my separate self and my identifying with it? And how can I most bring peace and wisdom and compassion and freedom to myself and those people who are within my sphere of influence? So I think I'm going to go again tonight to the demonstration. And I want my body to count as another person, tears, who's seeing how wrong some things are with the way our culture works. And also not holding it to myself, well, I should be part of the group. I should be angrily chanting. It isn't in me. It's not me. What is in me is seeing the pain. Betsy, some of you know Betsy Toll. We taught a weekend together a month or so ago. Betsy and I hooked up at the demonstration on Thursday night, and we're standing side by side, and there was a very angry man talking, shouting through the megaphone, and I leaned over to her and said, "Oh my, I wouldn't want to live in that consciousness." And she looked at me and said, "The pain is overwhelming, isn't it?" So what was coming out was anger, but his pain was so visible to me and to her. So what else could we do but be compassionate? Right? And understand that sometimes that reaction to having been imprisoned and having had hundreds of encounters with the police, why wouldn't he be angry? And there's another thread I want to pick up, which is that of the extraordinary loss and grief we're all experiencing because of COVID-19 and the profound instability that there is. Right? This beast of a virus is on the rise again, not only here but around the world. In some of the countries that did the very best on the first round, they're getting slammed. And so I keep having this experience. I want things to just go back to normal. And in a way they are normal in that they're completely unstable. But in this instance, I and my privileged white suburb, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the instability. And it's so frustrating to realize that we have the beautiful Dharma Center. We can't even go, we can't meet there. And when will that end? We don't know. It could easily be next summer or beyond that. And so how many things are we giving up? How many things how many activities that we used to use for distraction? Going to movies, go out for dinner, meet with friends, and so on. All that, so much of that has been thwarted, and it's resulting in grief. And grief has some structures in it, some phenomena. One of them is anger and bargaining and sadness and despair, and so that's coming together with the Black Lives Matter phenomenon, with the politics and he who will go unnamed, and international tensions and combat with the Chinese. And there's so much that's happening right now, and I see it in my relationship, and I've talked with other people in the relationships. There's challenges in relationships because we're spending so much time together. So that all speaks to me of something where I take refuge in the Buddha Dharma Sangha, and the importance of my sitting practice, and the importance of taking time to stabilize inside this very unstable psychological structure of a self, so that I bring a modicum of sanity and peace and tranquility into relationships with other people and myself. So it's a time of a lot of upheaval, and therefore a lot of need for practice. And I'm really glad you joined me here this morning. I'm glad those of you that are joining on Facebook and YouTube, watching this later, because we really must band together, I think, with others of a similar ilk. If we don't want to get swept away in the emotions of the time, and if we want to continue to develop our practice of awakening. I want to speak of one sweet thing that's happening with all this time at home. I'm developing a really lovely relationship with our dogs. I'm taking more time. I'm doing the I see you practice with them more. And in my relationship with Jennifer, we've had more time to actually stop and face one another and open up some of the places that have been problematic between us and find some resolution on them and realize what's real. So there's some very beautiful positives, and they balance the grief of how much loss there's been. The loss and isolation. So I think that is what I want to say. I'm moderately pleased with how it came out. And I'd like to ask you what you would like to say, what you would share to bring yourselves into this electronic conversation. So if you want to share, please just press your space bar or unmute yourself. And if everything works, here you'll be right here.
Robert, this is Deb.
Hello, Deb.
Hi. I'm so glad that you brought up the violence that's going on in our city, because it's been really, really weighing on me this week. Tuesday, I went down to join the Wall of Moms and see for myself what was happening, because it's so hard to sort of know from the news reports. I went down and it felt very like supportive and festive, and I also saw the anger in the people with megaphones, the Black Lives Matter leaders' voices, and to me and my family, we were like, anger was never really okay. It was almost shameful. And so when you see people expressing anger, I get like, don't be so angry, and very tone policey about how people should do it. So I know that that's been a big part of what's been happening. But so my experience was really positive, and it suddenly turned very, very, very scary and dark in a matter of minutes. And the stormtroopers came in, and I got caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, and tear gassed, and had a helmet on and ski goggles, but that's clearly not enough. And so I experienced firsthand what that felt like, but also experienced firsthand, like, it went from nothing to that so fast. Mm-hmm. And I felt like seeing people get shot at with with rubber bullets and being tear gassed, flashbangs going off everywhere. Like, it's so easy to get angry, and of course it's because you're terrified. And I got home later that night, and around 1:30 or 2 in the morning, and I couldn't settle, and I was just simmering. And ever since, I've been compulsively reading the news and reading the Wall of Moms boards and seeing how it's being normalized about what protective gear you should buy and whether or not you should wear a bulletproof vest, and what kind of goggles you should wear so that you don't get shrapnel in your eye, and I can't stop and imagine that every day of your life. Yes, of course. And so I've felt all sorts of feelings and conflicted about, like, it's not about me, it's about Black Lives Matter, and how Black people have had to, every time they go outside of their house, they're afraid. And part of me wants to just go to a lake and meditate and not be a part of it, or stay in my southeast home and go on my way and kind of act as though it's not happening in the world, because it's easy to do that. And I just feel embroiled in it, and I don't know how to come back to center. And so thank you for talking about this today.
I think you just put it really beautifully, how to come back to center and to not get lost in reactivity. Oh, there you are. That hurts, huh? So that's another place, which is to really feel the sadness. And thank you for sharing that with us, because to know, to share that with others, which is so difficult now with all this COVID isolation. It is the breaking open of the heart.
Robert?
I think I hear cricket.
Yes, you do. I think about what's happening to our beautiful city, and it just brings tears to my eyes, and I can understand the anger. I don't understand why people feel that destroying the city is accomplishing anything. I don't know. I just don't understand. Please help me understand what's going on and why.
Yeah. There's one thought of perspective which helped me, which going down there helped me. When we say destroying the city, that's a large statement, and what's happening is actually affecting a very small part of the city, right downtown, and a few other places, but mostly it's not affecting the beauty of the city. It is making clear, however, that there's been something really bad going on. And bad on a this is the piece that's getting through to me, bad on a monumental scale. Slavery never ended. And the structural racism is as bad as slavery. And so people are, now that it's coming out, and there's, I don't know how to say it other than, I feel so new in understanding it at all myself. It's like there's a whole part of our culture which has been walled off to my consciousness because I don't go there. I don't experience it. I had a little hit when I went to New Orleans, and Jen and I went to the Whitney Plantation. There's a plantation there which is a monument to slavery. And there are 350,000 names on wall of human beings who were enslaved in Louisiana. I mean, 350,000 people. And so there are bad things happening, and let me jump to another thing. That yes, the anger gets out of control. People have been looting early on in this. They've been looting and starting fires, and they are not the most upstanding aspect of our culture. I don't think they're particularly helpful, but it's understandable to me.
I guess I don't understand how. I can understand taking down a statue of something that's symbolic of slavery or that sort of thing, but how is destroying the elk statue? I mean, I don't know if the elk statue was destroyed. I haven't heard anything about it. It was gone, is all I know. It could be the city took it down. I don't know.
Robert, this is Dave. The elk statue was taken down preemptively by the city to protect it, because there were some just sort of scattered fires nearby, and they wanted to protect it. Nobody destroyed the elk.
Great. Thanks, Dave.
I was hoping I could speak a little bit on this subject in general, if
Yeah.
that's okay. I've been doing a lot of thinking about the idea of lawlessness in this situation, and imagine if you're playing Monopoly. I think most people have at some point played Monopoly in their lives, and there are rules to the game. And if you didn't like one of those rules, like in the rules as written, free parking does nothing. And maybe you like to play where if you go to free parking, you get all the tax money that's been collected. But that's not the rules. And so if the rules are something that affects you negatively, the free parking example might not be the best one. but everyone you play with says, no, we have to play by the rules, you're not going to want to play that anymore. And you might want to get the rules changed. So you might go to the company that makes it, and they might say, no, we're not changing the rules. And so the rules don't change. And then maybe they start monitoring everyone playing the game to make sure that they're playing by the rules, those rules. And if you don't play by those rules, they take your game away. They may take other games away. What do you do? What do you do if the rules and those enforcing them are unjust? If the rules are hurting you and the people that are supposed to protect you, or the people that are supposed to protect you don't, they protect the rules. The people that would change the rules don't listen to you and don't change them, and you continue to be hurt. What do you do? The only possibility is to move outside the rules. Playing inside of them is not functioning. What do you do? I don't agree with destruction or fire. I don't agree with things that endanger people's lives. But at a certain point, we have to say, where else can we go but outside the law? I used to be very law is right. And the last couple of years, I've started to understand that just because something is a law does not make it right. And just because something is illegal does not make it wrong. I remember a year or two back during the migrant invasion that was supposed to be happening, a man was arrested for giving water to people in the desert. What? That's insane. That is pure insanity. So, anyway, thank you.
Wow. That was helpful and clear. Thank you.
Hey Robert, it's Michael.
Hello, Michael.
Just playing a little bit on what Dave just said there, and I think it was very well put, and I thank you for the input you gave. Maybe it's helpful to go back to the beginning of these protests when Trevor Noah posted his very moving video about the lack of a functioning social compact.
Yeah.
Contract between the different segments of our society. And I think that's kind of what Dave was getting at. If we don't have a social contract that's honored, that honors itself, and if we as a society decide one segment of our society is no longer valid and they have to live by our rules or to hell with them, then why would we expect them to abide by that social contract? And it's easy for me to sit here also and say, well, I don't agree with the violence and the destruction or the graffiti, even on a small part of our city, if it were that way. But how can I expect a segment of my society to agree to live by my social contract that doesn't honor them and is imposed upon them in a completely different structure and set of rules?
Yeah.
So I'd urge you to go back to that Trevor Noah video. It's easy to find on the internet, and just type in Trevor Noah 17-minute video on Black Lives Matter, and it's worth finding. Yeah. Thank you.
Robert,
Thank you, Michael.
Robert, I would just add to the Monopoly game analogy. What if at the very beginning, certain people were dealt 20% of the full amount of money and resources, and other people got 100%, and other people were dealt 500%? I mean, that's what we're dealing with.
Thanks, Tim.
Hey, Robert. I'm Sandra.
Ah, Tempest.
I just wanted to speak up and is one of the few, I believe, Black folks who attend the digital Sangha. And I have two things. The first thing is jumping off of the suggestion to watch the Trevor Noah video, which is a very good suggestion. I also suggest that after you do that, you find the Kimberly Jones video. And I think that basically the best way to do that is just to Google Kimberly Jones video, Black Lives Matter, where she's a Black woman, and she speaks very passionately and angrily about why the destruction or at least like the partial harm to buildings, targets, whatever it is why these things are happening. And a lot of it is because, and I think that this is a thing that people who are only seeing what's happening through watching mainstream media and who have not sort of had the opportunity to dig deeper into the social and cultural aspects of this moment, they'll realize that a lot of corporations are directly responsible for this situation. This moment was sparked by the death of George Floyd. But obviously, he's not the only one. There are so many names, right? But it's not just the police that are a problem. It's not just our culture that is a problem. It is also the corporations that support the systems that keep people of color and other marginalized people oppressed. So, setting fire to the target isn't just about, I want to burn some stuff. And I know that, there is also a difference between the people who are setting fires because they do want to burn some stuff, and they're actually not movement people, they're just literally people who love destruction. But then there are other times when there are targeted, we are burning this down because this is part of a corporate culture that harms us. There are a lot of corporations. I remember early in this, somebody was talking about how they saw somebody breaking the window of a Chase Bank with one of those rental scooters, and they were like, "This is the most 2020 thing that could happen." But it's because the mobile scooters and the Chase Bank are both involved in the destruction of people of color and other marginalized people, just in different ways. It's like there's so much to this system. So understand that sometimes property destruction is not just about anger, and it's not about what's happening to the city. It's literally about, I need you to pay attention to how the owners of this property have contributed to why I feel unsafe, why I'm angry, whatever. All of that is important to understand, and I definitely suggest you look up that aspect of it too. And the Kimberly Jones video is a good place.
Thank you, Tempest.
Robert,
Hello, Pamela.
I wanted to support something that you had said about attending protests. I have attended them since the 60s, and when I go, I will not participate in the chanting that is anger-fed, and I usually stay on the outside of the protests so I can leave if things turn suddenly very, very nasty. And why I go is to bear witness to what is happening and what is being said, and to send metta to us all who are there. The other thing I wanted to mention is that there is a class starting next Sunday that is white and awakening together to try to understand some of what Tempest just told us about. And it's going to be quite in-depth and intense and very necessary for our times. So I had Bill put that up in the chat box as well. So thank you for bringing this up, and we send Portland Metta.
Thank you, Pamela. And I will be sure that the link to that gets onto the PIMC listserv. Someone told me the other day listserv is an outmoded term, that I'm showing my age. What else? So the email online communication amplifier of PIMC, it's called Connections. I'll put it on there.
The kids just call them mailing list now.
The mailing list. Well, shit. How simple. Okay. I thought mailing lists were things back in the old days that you printed labels from. That I was being very avant-garde with listserv. David, hi.
Hello. I wanted to chime in and say and to the things that you were saying, living in Richmond, Virginia, as I do, but I have such fondness for Portland, having lived there for 35 years before I came here. But coming to Richmond set me off on the journey that you're talking about I don't know, 2 years ago when I started reading the writings of Ta-Nehisi Coates. And that was just so eye-opening for me because, if for no other reason, he allowed me to look at the world through his eyes. And it was kind of I guess I could say a slap in the soul. And what it had me do is start to question everything, all of the assumptions that I was taught, that I was brought up with from, the police. The police were always this benevolent, guy strolling down the street who's your friend, and then I've started listening to these black men when confronted with police, and they're absolutely terrified. The police are not benevolent to them. They are terrified of being shot. They are panicked. And the police don't appreciate the videos that I've seen. The police don't appreciate or understand that, and so situations just blow up. But assumptions about this country, American exceptionalism, the Constitution, in Richmond, so much of our constitutional history started, and to just realize that the participants in the Constitutional Convention were landowning white men, and so it was from their perspective, and just that original perspective has changed how I now understand this country. And the whole idea of originalism and the interpretation of the Constitution, that's trying to recapture the frame of mind of these white landowning men. It's a structural racism in itself in the Supreme Court's, the right wing of the Supreme Court's originalism interpretation, and how the enslavement of black people has been a political pawn from South Carolina's holding out in the Declaration of Independence. I have felt pride in this country that I no longer feel. And the moment has been sharpened by these angry protests. I'm hearing more and more people, I'll just say white people, who are starting to question their assumptions, just like you talked about, because of these protests. And in the monopoly analogy, maybe that's what's necessary. My fear is that people will want to go back to normal. And this search for normality is in so many ways a desire to go backwards. And there, as you talk constantly about anatta and anicca, there is no going backwards. There is only going in one direction. And I guess the last thing I want to say is that the things I've been reading about the history of the police in this country, that their purpose has been to protect the comfortable. Those who would disrupt the comfortable, the original slave patrols, and then going against the unions in the early 20th century. The police institutional role has been to protect the comfortable and the establishment. But my one word phrase for my outlook now is question all of my assumptions, soften into them, meditate on them. What is behind them? Do they represent the values that I truly believe in? And so I live a life of question marks right now.
Thanks, David.
It's Robert. It's Pamela.
Hello, Pamela.
On my set of postage stamps, the two Pamelas are right next to each other. I don't know if it is with you. I read an article this morning. My partner and I were talking about going to the protests, and we live in Salem, and sort of discussing what to do and what we need to do to be safe if we go and all of that. And I read an article that's in Oregon Live. I think that is the Oregonian online, about how terrifying it is to oppose authoritarianism, and how important it is to do it at the same time. And so now I'm sort of struggling even more with and how important it is to face our fears. You know, is my fear more that I'm going to get attacked or get hurt or get tear gassed or whatever? Is that a greater fear than the fear I have of the United States descending into fascism? And so kind of weighing that, and noticing that. And I am also struggling because I have some lung issues that kind of make me afraid of getting tear gassed and making it worse. And and yet I just don't want to stand by anymore. I just don't want to stand by anymore. And so figuring out what to do and how to do it, and discomfort with going and with discomfort with not going is where I'm teetering right now. And sitting in the question.
Pamela?
But thank you so much for that, for what you said today. Yeah?
I too have lung issues, and I had no fear of being tear gassed when I was there, because I decided I'm not going to stay until the provocation at the federal building reaches a point that the feds are going to come storming out and push the protesters back. That earlier in the evening, over in the other part of the park, there was no concern at all. That wasn't what was happening there. It was later. It's a ritualized encounter between these two forces. And so if you just left before 11 o'clock, when I left at a little before 11, I wandered from the park right up to the front where the wall of moms was, and where later was the tear gas. And I could see them kind of gearing up for this. They were literally getting their gear ready and preparing. But I couldn't be there with my lungs. It wouldn't make any sense either. So that piece I think you could put aside if you just paid attention to where you were.
Okay. That's actually helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I just add? Robert, you said, you don't want to be there when the provocation starts. From my experience, there was no provocation. So that it's the moment that they decide they're going to come out because they want to clear the square. So I just want to clarify that because I feel like that matters. But I do agree that showing up to show your support and then leaving by 10:45, you'll be safe and you'll be able to celebrate. But I think we as a tendency sort of, and I've struggled with this all week, to I'm recognizing that I have me and my perspective and my experience, but it so isn't about me and my perspective and my experience. It's about what can you do to support and empathize. So going there, I mean, I like Robert, I didn't feel as called to sort of angrily, echo the Black Lives Matter leaders, but it's so poignant to listen and to sort of go, what's their experience as opposed to our experience of it. And it's easy for us to go like, they shouldn't do that and that shouldn't be happening and I wouldn't do it this way and I'm not gonna, and so I think that's the biggest invitation of all, is to actually take the self away. And but I think you're totally safe if you leave by 10:30, 10:45.
Thank you.
And in my experience, 95% of the people were masked in terms of COVID.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like it was not all that hard to stay distant as well, a little distant.
Not at all. It was not a jam-packed crowd, except right up front within 20 feet of the speakers. And even then, at concerts, I always want to go up and stand and dance. Right, it's much more jammed there than it was. I could easily move to, how at concerts it's kind of hard to get to the front. I don't know if you've ever done that, but it's hard to get through the people to the front. But that wasn't the case at all. I just wandered through the spaces, and so it wasn't jam-packed.
Thank you. But that article is really good. It's called "Protesting an Authoritarian Police State is Terrifying," is the name of the article.
Uh-huh.
So.
Can I just say one more thing? I think a lot of people are afraid to get out there because of COVID or because of lung issues, and it's no joke. I feel like I still don't breathe properly. But there are so many organizations to give money to for people who don't feel called to go down and support the protests that way. Every time you click a button to buy something from Amazon, think about, is there another small Black-owned business that I can support instead? There's so many things that we can do that don't involve going down to the Justice Center. So there's just that as well. And it's confusing because there's a lot of different organizations and it's not one central group. But I can put together a list of links for organizations if that would be helpful.
That'd be great. Thank you. So it's 12:10. I'm reticent to stop right now. Let's just see. Is there anyone else that has something to speak? Something else that wants to be spoken?
Something Gary says sometimes in our Boundless Heart group, I can't remember where he says he got it, but sometimes forgiveness means saying never again.
Mm-hmm. That parallels one of my favorite quotes from Achan Sumedo, who said, loving someone doesn't mean you like them, and it doesn't mean you don't call the police. And it doesn't mean you let them back into your life to forgive someone. It may mean I forgive you and I put down my end of the animosity, but I'm never seeing that person again. Too dangerous. Anybody else? I just spotted Jason in his hammock again.
Yes. I actually I have something to say I'm kind of struggling with. So, I'm listening to everyone, and I really appreciate what everyone is saying. My personal struggle is I feel like I'm on the sidelines. And on one hand, I feel like I should be going down there and checking things out, firsthand. On the other hand, I'm, already sort of feeling emotionally overwhelmed, and I feel like if I go down there, I'm not going to be able to function. So that's part of it, as well as, all the other issues that we're concerned about, exposure to COVID. I've got, an immune impaired daughter to a certain degree. She's diabetic. So, we've been very careful trying to avoid this. But like I said, I feel guilty because I'm not involved in this. And I don't know if that's a question. It's just a statement. I just thought I felt compelled to share that because I got to believe there's some of the rest of us that are feeling that way too.
You know what I think of, Jason, when you said that is, in loving kindness, practices, we always begin with the self. Now, for Westerners, we've modified it because so many Westerners aren't very good at loving ourselves. And so we start with a benefactor or someone else. But our own living system must be our first concern. And if it's the wrong thing to do to go and do that, then staying home and loving your family and loving yourself and what Deb said, there's many other ways to participate. Simply educating ourselves is very important. So that the thou shalt be on the front lines is not a very wise view. Oh, I see Joan. Hi, Joan.
Yes. The NAACP local president spoke up at the march a couple of days ago, and one of the things he said was it may be time to move into the boardrooms and out of the park. And I was wondering, and for those of us who feel the guilt for not going down there, and what Deb said about money, but there may be other ways that we can contribute. And I'm wondering if that got addressed at all when you were down there Thursday. I'm not sure what day he showed up.
I was there when he was there. I got there just as he was ending, actually.
Robert? Hello.
Jonas, hello.
I just, for all of us who feel guilty about not being able to go, considering I'm down here in Eugene right now, there are so many other things going on that are taking a back seat. There are people going hungry right now. It's unbelievable. When I'm up in Oregon City, I would go by this church. I'd ride my bike up by this church every day, and twice a week they used to give food away. Twice a week, and it was mostly homeless people. Now they give food away every day, and it's not homeless people, it's people in vans with children and family because they're all unemployed, and they need volunteers. They need volunteers to give out food, they need volunteers to give money. Not food, but money, because they can buy food up in Portland for 10 cents a pound. So if you get them $20, that's 200 pounds of food. That'll feed a family for a week. So there are a lot of things we can do. There are other things, COVID is going to go on for another year. That's going to be reality. And, from a health perspective. But people that are locked in their houses, older people, there are volunteer organizations that are going to be doing Zoom things, and we can learn how to do that. So we may not be able to go function at a BLM event, but there are many, many things that we can do as human beings to alleviate the suffering of others right now. with no guilt.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I think I'm going to honor time. Anybody sitting with anything that you really feel you must say, so we're not chopping it, but then let's go after that. So let's end, dear friends, with a minute of chanting Om. Om I once heard as the dial tone of the universe. I like that. And letting it vibrate in our hearts and crown of our heads. And may it also carry a message of compassion and love to all beings. Beings of the air, the earth, and the waters. To all of our teachers. To everyone on every side of oppression. May all beings everywhere be free. Om. Om. Well, dear friends, thank you for coming. I look forward to seeing you more, if you wish, tomorrow morning at 7, right here in the tent in Eastern Beaverton, or Tuesday night at the book launching party. That's been announced on the listserv and will be again on the mailing list. Goodbye. Thanks for coming. Goodbye, those of you on YouTube and Facebook.